Sunday morning on BBC Radio Scotland.
Hello and welcome to Sunday Morning with me, Zara Janjua. I'm with you until 10 o'clock. Coming up on the show today, we'll be discussing King Charles' cancer diagnosis and exploring whether we've made the cultural shift towards being more open about private matters. Does social media highlight how unforgiving we have become? Well, the Archbishop of Canterbury seems to think so. We'll be getting into that after 10. Ahead of the release of the film Bob Marley, One Love, councillor Graham Campbell talks about Rastafari and practising it here in Scotland. And in a few minutes, the marrying of the Hindu elements of yoga with Christian spirituality. That's right after...
No more room in the pan, I cook up rhymes in a bigger pot. On the road, what you figure got tricks on my sleeve? You won't believe my story, weed to a bigger plot. Work, sleep off the pages, hop on stages, we crazy, need to be like a cages. Right, you feel it? Yeah, I'm light skin vanilla, coming at you like a pack of gorillas. Both planning on 8, understand from afar, Nashville to the Lone Star State, relate. Indicator is still the Amigo men greater. This way you belong strong, you gon' be great. Front clap with a scream and a shout, cast down, down. Fast like a gun blast, drown out. The sounds and leaps and bounds, flush out clowns, creeps and hounds, foxes and wolves and sheep gowns.
We feel it, she feel it, we feel it. So round and round we go. We feel it, she feel it, we feel it. Here we go. We gon' get up, she gon' get up, we gon' get up. Knocking down the joint to the player, hey, shut up. Take it to the island, never songs, we don't give it, till we can't get it.
I was born in the cold, moved to the heat, got used to the flame, now spit it on beat. I was chosen to womb, groomed by Christ with a gift to raise souls from the tomb. Please don't assume we ain't trying to take this slot, blow the spot. Worldwide still part of the plot. Everybody talk about changing the game, but everything I hear y'all sounding the same. From the beats to the video, clothes and looks, same concepts for your flows and hooks. CDs round here they can raise the dead, so come on everybody now, bob your head. Y'all need this, heed these words of the wise. Rhyme so meaty like jambalaya, got truth for high. Can you stand the fire? See you come alive, that's my desire now.
We feel it, she feel it, we feel it. So round and round we go. We feel it, she feel it, we feel it. Here we go. We gon' get up, she gon' get up, we gon' get up. Knocking down the joint to the player, hey, shut up. Take it to the island, never songs, we don't give it, till we can't get it.
Boy, look at here. You ever heard a dead man talk before? You ever seen a dead man walk before? You ever heard dead men lock the flow like these before? We raised the quote.
Now my time frame flip, make time change. You know another record will hit, explode, make your brains hang. Speak my language and my dialect, circulate like a boomerang, man. What did you expect? He feel it, she feel it, we feel it. So round and round we go. He feel it, she feel it, we feel it. Here we go. We gon' get up, she gon' get up, we gon' get up. Knocking down the joint to the player, hey, shut up. Take it to the island, never songs, we don't give it, till we can't get it. Here we go. He feel it, she feel it, we feel it. So round and round we go. He feel it, she feel it, we feel it. Here we go. We gon' get up, she gon' get up, we gon' get up. Knocking down the joint to the player, hey, shut up. Take it to the island, never songs, we don't give it, till we can't get it. Here we go. He feel it, she feel it, we feel it. So round and round we go. He feel it, she feel it, we feel it. Here we go. We gon' get up, she gon' get up, we gon' get up. Knocking down the joint to the player, hey, shut up. Take it to the island, never songs, we don't give it, till we can't get it. Here we go.
Now, next Wednesday marks the beginning of Lent. It's a period of reflection for many Christians in the lead up to Easter, where the act of abstinence helps to focus the mind on Jesus' experience of 40 days and 40 nights in the desert. But a new book aims to explore this connection with God in a slightly different way. Embody Lent is a transformative guide designed to help individuals explore the season of Lent through a unique blend of classical Hatha yoga practice and Christian spirituality. The book features 8 sessions focused on movement, breath awareness, biblical reflection, and ways into silent prayer. Its author is Church of Scotland minister and yoga teacher Pauline Steenbergen, and she joins me now. A very good morning to you, Pauline.
Good morning, Zara. Lovely to be with you.
Now, as we've just mentioned there, Pauline, you're both a Church of Scotland minister and a yoga teacher. What brought you to yoga?
It was by accident, actually, Zara. I used to do a lot of running to help me deal with the stress of ministry. And I had a knee injury. I went to see a sports physio in Carlisle here, where I live. And they recommended exercises, but also going to yoga. So I thought, I want to try this. I want to recover. And that first class, I'll never forget, rolling out my mat 6 feet by 2 feet. Gave me this little space where I could slow down my thinking, my breathing, listen to my body, which I don't think I'd ever really fully done before, to be more in the moment, more present. And I found it helped me to listen to God in a new, transformative way. And in fact, my physical exercise in the yoga class became my spiritual exercise from that point forward.
How wonderful that this practice opened a gateway to your religion and to your own spirituality, because there are different forms of yoga, but it was the Hatha movement in particular that you liked.
Yes, so I went on to train then for 3 years part-time with Yoga Scotland, and they are very open to all faiths and none. And they had a real openness to who I was authentically as a Church of Scotland minister with a heritage in Celtic spirituality, and that I wanted to be Jesus-centered. So yes, I was able to study all the texts, the Bhagavad Gita, the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. But equally, I was able to say, where do I find myself in this? How can I be Jesus-centered in all of this? It was fascinating to learn more about other faith traditions, and that enabled me to be more sure about who I am, what I believe, and the Jesus that I serve.
Because you've mentioned a few practices in there, and obviously anyone who has attended a yoga class or looked into yoga at any point will be familiar with some of the positions and some of the practice. But how did you marry then yoga with that Christian theology and being Jesus-centered, as you've just mentioned?
Sure. So rather than the word marry, I tend to use the word intersect. It's the word used by Christians practicing yoga in the USA. It's a really good word. It's more about where are the parallels, where are the common threads. And I always use the Sanskrit words for the postures. That feels really important to acknowledge the origins of yoga, which predate all world religions from the Indian subcontinent about 3,000 years ago. But how did I do it? I think there's this sense of mind, body, breath being a commonality for all of us because we are human. And equally, that connects us with the earth, a bigger body, with all living things, with everything that moves and breathes. And there's just this sense of who we are in terms of our faith traditions. It, in some ways is very different, but in some ways is not that different. And there's more unity than we might imagine.
Interesting that you've been looking through those commonalities, because I think anyone who has ever taken time to pray might identify that taking time out and the thinking and the breathing potentially that you've experienced there. But Pauline, you have married yoga with a particular time of year in the Christian calendar. So what made you decide to link yoga then with Lent?
Because, as you said in your introduction, it's a time in the Northern Hemisphere when many Christians of all traditions take up a spiritual discipline for 6 weeks before Easter to remember Jesus, who took on that discipline in the desert. So fasting, giving of time or money, it just felt like, let's make this really physical. It was a physical experience for Jesus. He confronted, hunger, thirst, cold, darkness, intense sunlight, and also risk of his life in terms of wild animals and the kind of mental health challenges of facing the oppositional forces of good and evil, and also that huge question, who am I? He was really facing his spiritual identity and his calling. What did God want of him in that life he had in the flesh on this earth?
So what's interesting is a lot of people, when they think of Lent, would often believe that it's a time to give something up. We often talk about giving something up, but in this instance, it's about adopting a new practice for that duration, for that time. How does that sort of manifest then, you know, in terms of doing yoga for 40 days? Is that what your book is about? Is it adopting it for that time?
It could be done for 40 days. I wanted to keep the book very accessible. So for some people, they could practice just once a week for 5 weeks, and then for Palm Sunday, Monday, Thursday, and Good Friday, which would be 3 times in the final week, the 6th week of Lent. There's options there for practicing on the mat, standing, kneeling, sitting, lying down, or equally to practice seated in a chair.
Mm-hmm.
And when I piloted the material in Lent 2023, I did have someone who practiced in a hospital bed with his wife reading out the instructions.
Oh, so it's very accessible.
Yes, I want it to be as inclusive as possible for a diverse range of needs for people out there. For beginners, for some Christians who've always been curious about yoga, or just maybe thinking about their own well-being or health and fitness, who've never tried this before, and also for people who are practicing yoga regularly, but are curious perhaps about spirituality, about who am I, maybe about Christianity, maybe about Jesus. I'm finding that people are buying this book who are in my regular weekly classes, and who are also in all my church networks as well.
It's a very unique concept, I think, and the book Embody Lent in 29 Yoga Postures features 8 sessions that take their inspiration from the book of Ecclesiastes, which contains the famous passage, "To every season, there is a time to be born and a time to die, a time for love and a time for hate." Why did you choose this passage?
It's so universal. It's so relatable. We're all dealing all the time with the duality of war and peace, love and hate, brokenness and healing. It just takes us right in there. And I love to think that Jesus knew Ecclesiastes 3:1-8 off by heart. He knew it well. Apparently, that was read out in the festival in Jerusalem annually every year when the Jews made their pilgrimage there. I would like to think it gave him enormous strength on the cross. Mm-hmm. It gives me strength day by day. I love those verses. And some people might remember the song of it as well. Why Ecclesiastes? At the time of writing the material originally, I was teaching women asylum seekers in Carlisle who'd come to our city to live in a hotel, over 100 of them there. And Pride Cumbria sponsored me for 4 months to teach those women yoga, because it was a helpful way to help them deal with trauma and get to know each other. Their first language wasn't English, but the simple breathing, simple postures, the simple connection between us, women who were from Eritrea, Sudan and Iran, Muslims and Christians, so much that divided us. And yet the tools of yoga brought us together in a profound way. And the silence, the beauty of saying the words for peace to one another at the end, I'll never forget it. It was, for me, a time of hope, and it brought a lived experience of unity that is possible in a world full of dualism.
Oh my goodness, Pauline, it's been so wonderful to talk to you this morning. Your book, Embody Lent in 29 Yoga Postures, is out now from Wild Goose Publications, and we'll be exploring Lent further in the next hour by asking what the benefits of abstinence are, whether we have a faith or not. Let's get into some music. Here's a...
I wanna put on my boogie shoes.
You're listening to Sunday Morning with me, Zara Janjua. Plenty coming up on the programme today. We'll be speaking to a warrior woman, ancestor of a legendary female Islamic warrior woman very soon. And first, we have Paolo Nutini with High Hopes.
Destiny. Back in the days we wanted everything. Mama said, burn your biographies, rewrite your history, light up your wildest dreams, museum victories. Every day we wanted everything. Mama said, don't give up, it's a little complicated. All tied up, no more love, and I'd hate to see you waiting. Had to have hopes for a living, shooting for the stars when I couldn't make a killing. Didn't have a dime, but I always had a vision. Always had hopes. Had to have hopes for a living. Didn't know how, but I always had a feeling I was gonna be that one in a million. Always had hopes. Mama said, something for oddities, stranger cruises. Ain't ever wannabes, winning the novelties that don't ever change. We wanted everything. Stay up on that rise, stay up on that rise, never come down. Oh, stay up on that rise, stay up on that rise, never come down. Mama said, don't give up, it's a little complicated. All tied up, no more love, and I'd hate to see you waiting. They say it's all been done, but they haven't seen the best of me. So I got one more run, and it's gonna be a sight to see. Had to have high hopes for a living, shooting for the stars when I couldn't make a killing. Didn't have a dime, but I always had a vision. Always had high hopes. Had to have high hopes for a living. Didn't know how, but I always had a feeling I was gonna be that one in a million. Always had high hopes. Had to have high hopes for a living, shooting for the stars when I couldn't make a killing. Didn't have a dime, but I always had a vision. Always had high hopes. Had to have high hopes for a living. Didn't know how, but I always had a feeling I was gonna be that one in a million. Always had high hopes.
Now, I don't know about you, but as far as hobbies go, delving into your family history can be an extremely exciting one, especially if, like my next guest, one of your ancestors just happens to be one of the most legendary female warriors in Islamic history. Nusayba was the warrior's name, and earlier this week, her descendant, the author Nusa Nuseibeh, joined me to chat about her new book of essays, Namesake: Reflections on a Warrior Woman. Combining the warrior story with her own personal exploration of feminism and identity in the 21st century Arab world, I began by asking Nusa what it was that made her put pen to paper in the first place, and why she chose the essay form in particular to tell her story.
Well, I've always loved the way that the essay form can probe and stretch a subject without necessarily coming up with firm answers. And I'm a big fan of contemporary essayists like Kathy Park Hong and Rebecca Solnit, Rachel Cusk, those sorts of people. And I kind of wanted to do something similar to what they do in their writing, but bringing in Arab Muslim culture and kind of using my ancestor as a sort of doorway into both early Islamic history and contemporary issues, both for others who, like me, kind of are intimately familiar with these cultures, but also for others for whom these cultures might feel a bit more alien.
Because you often do hear about historic figures inspiring books of fiction, You weren't drawn to fiction. There was something particular about this academic form, that exploration, as you've mentioned there.
Yeah, I wanted to sort of use her not as entertainment, but more as a kind of portal for readers into a culture and a history that either they kind of knew a little bit about or that would be completely foreign to them.
So how would you describe Nusseibah? How did she appear to you when you were growing up? When did you discover that she was your ancestor?
Oh, well, that was always known. She was always this sort of ancestor figure, one-armed, She's famous for losing an arm in one of multiple battles. Yeah, it's always been part of family lore that she's our ancestor and our namesake. Growing up, she wasn't very real to me. At uni, I think I remember joking that I could drink as much as I liked because all her descendants were guaranteed entry into heaven. So she was a sketch. She wasn't very real.
Because she is known to be someone of folklore now, but she was a real person.
Well, there's debates about that. The writings about that time are not necessarily super reliable. Different academics will come up with different answers. She's an important figure, whether or not she's real, I think, because she tells us a lot about, if not, what really happened then, what people wanted to have happened then. And I think that's interesting in and of itself.
She was an Islamic woman who fought beside Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. So what do you know about her?
Her full name, Nusseibah bint Ka'ab al-Khazrajiyya. She was one of the first female converts, and she at one point decided to jump into one of his battles and start being a warrior alongside him. She's famous for losing an arm and continuing to fight. There's not that much that's known about her. There's sort of little bits here and there, little stories that emerge about her, but that's the main crux of it. She was an early female convert and a warrior woman.
And was it very unusual at the time for a woman to be a warrior?
Absolutely, yeah. That is partly why she's famous. She broke all the rules, basically, by, instead of being on the sidelines, tending to all of the wounded, seeing the Prophet was in trouble and picking up one of the men's swords and just jumping into the fray.
So you obviously knew a lot about her growing up, but how did your perception change as you began researching her stories to write the book?
I knew the vague outline of her growing up, but I think in researching and writing the essays, I feel like I've grown closer to her, I mean, there isn't like a big detailed biography of her that I could use to understand her. So to some extent, the project of the essay collection was to create a narrative around her or a narrative of her by sort of writing near her, imagining her, bringing her to life from a variety of different angles. So she sort of feels now like a fuller portrait, not just a sketch, even if it's only an imagined one. She feels more three-dimensional to me.
And one of the themes that you touch upon in the book is that interconnectedness between Eastern and Western cultures. How then do you think it manifests itself?
Well, because I use the stories of my ancestors as sort of doorway into contemporary issues, I hope that what I'm able to show through the book is that ideas or figures that feel very far away and foreign can actually be sort of really relevant and contemporary. One of my essays explores language, for instance, and I talk in it about how like lots of familiar everyday English words have actually come from the Arabic, words like cotton, magazine, coffee, caravan, sugar, all Arabic originally. These types of connections, they remind us that there isn't really such a big divide between East and West, and that we actually have a lot more in common. Things that we think are ours alone have actually come from elsewhere. So we're more connected than we might think.
One of the essays in particular that I was drawn into was entitled Aubergine. I am definitely a bit of a foodie, and that was making my mouth water just reading through some of those descriptions of the foods. And its importance in Arab culture. You do describe food as being inseparably gendered. So what ways do you explore this in your essays?
In this essay, I draw on one of the more bizarre stories about Nusseibah, in which she fasts inexplicably outside of Ramadan and prepares a meal for the Prophet Muhammad. And I was fascinated by this because, not only is this story kind of incongruous, this warrior woman making a meal and fasting, like what's it doing in there? But it also seemed a sort of beautiful example of how complex food cooking, eating, feeding, fasting can be. It's crucial for Arab culture, for preserving culture and family, I think, more generally. But the narratives that exist around food mean that cooking and feeding have, generally speaking, been part of the domestic and therefore feminine sphere. And eating and appetite have, again, generally speaking, been eyed with suspicion for women. Women are meant to be small, not take up too much space. It's a bit transgressive for a woman to have a large and showy appetite. So it's a puzzle for me. I love cooking, and Palestinian food is very important to me because it's part of preserving a culture that's under attack. But somehow underneath that, there's this layer of sort of normative femininity that makes me kind of uncomfortable. On top of that, I think most women, I don't have a straightforward relationship with food. So it's complex. This is one of the parts of Nusseibeh that I think is interesting, that she isn't easily readable or understandable. She isn't immediately a cliched idea of a warrior or a warrior woman. She has these aspects of her that are a little bit more human and surprising.
It's becoming increasingly more common, isn't it, to look into our past, and, you know, with DNA tests, you can discover really far back how your ancestry goes and a lot more about yourself. Do you feel that looking into your ancestry and cultural histories does help you to connect to that and to yourself and to other people?
What I like about looking back into the stories that have been passed along generations is that it kind of just, it makes the world feel more intimate. You know, if you can connect to your own history, if you know where you've come from, if you see the patterns that have emerged across generations, the world feels smaller. And we see that, you know, a lot of the time we've been telling the same or at least similar stories about ourselves, which I think especially nowadays is really important.
Well, of course. And actually, it touches on one of your other essays, Warrior, Warrior. That explores what it's like to be courageous and fearful in the 7th century and, of course, now in the 21st century. Mm-hmm. Is it possible not to be a warrior in our modern age, do you think? How might have Nusseibeh have coped in today's digital age?
Well, I mean, I think it's probably possible for some people to not be warriors. I mean, I think probably Donald Trump doesn't strike me as someone who worries a great deal. But as a Palestinian, yeah, I think worrying or anxiety is a pretty rational state of being when your culture and people are occupied and assaulted. On a personal level, though, I'm probably a bit of a sort of extra worrier. I'm particularly conflict avoidant, and I like to keep people happy. And I'm pretty plagued by self-doubt, sometimes even paralyzed by my worries. So I don't know, Nusseibeh, to me, the idea of my ancestor somehow picking up a sword and throwing herself into a raging battle and kind of doing that not just once, but again and again, even after losing an arm, I find that so incredibly hard to relate to. So, I'm curious about it. I'm curious about what bravery looks like. And as you say, is it possible to be brave or to be worry-free in the 21st century? Or was it easier for her in a way? Because a warrior can go out and face their foes head on. She just had to go and get through the fight, whereas we 21st century warriors are kind of stuck fighting our own internal invisible ghosts.
Well, it sounds like she has been certainly an inspiring figure for you. Nusa Nusseibeh, thank you so much for joining me on the programme. It's been such a pleasure to have you with us, and all the best with your book too.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
And Nusa Nusseibeh's book, Namesake, Reflections on a Warrior Woman, is published by Canongate. Now, have you seen the new remake of the Colour Purple movie yet? It is still on in cinemas, so it's definitely worth a watch. An album has also been released titled Music From and inspired by the colour purple, and it contains this absolutely stunning song from Celeste.
To cry out, one voice holds me and lifts me to my feet. First steps, new world. I've no loss, I've no hurt. For this, I've summer day, and I'll be there, shining on all day long. In a
Absolutely beautiful song there. That was Celeste and There Will Come a Day. You're listening to Sunday Morning with me, Zara Janjua. Now coming up at 10, both here on BBC Radio Scotland and on BBC One Scotland, is The Sunday Show with Martin Geisler and Nick Sheridan. And Nick joins me now to tell us what is coming up. Good morning to you, Nick.
Morning, Zara. Yes, a very, very busy morning here for sure from 10 o'clock on BBC Radio Scotland and BBC One Scotland too. So Scotland's new Health Secretary, Neil Gray, will be giving his first interview since he was appointed with Martin at 10 a.m. On BBC One Scotland. Later on the radio, we'll be getting the take of Scottish Labour and the Scottish Conservatives, as well as the former Health Secretary, Jean Freeman. As well as that, Israel now is facing growing international warnings over its planned offensive in Rafah, that city in southern Gaza, crammed now with Palestinian refugees. We will speak to a former Israeli negotiator who negotiated on behalf of Israel with Hamas back in 2006. He'll be reflecting on those continuing military efforts to secure the release of hostages as opposed to a diplomatic one. In the US, while Trump versus Biden might feel like a bit of a rerun for the 2020 vote, there is a big difference in this year's election, and that is AI, artificial intelligence. It's already now being used by both campaigns and will likely play a big role in the race for the White House. So we will be looking at what questions that might throw up for both candidates. And staying in the States tonight is, of course, the Super Bowl. I don't know if you'll be watching it, Zara. But the
I might tune in, might stay up for it this evening.
Not me, I tell you. No, the Kansas City Chiefs are taking on the 49ers in Las Vegas. And millions will be tuning in for the game, and as well maybe to spot a certain Taylor Swift appearance as well. We'll have to keep an eye on that. And we'll be taking you through the Sunday papers to our guests this week, former Labour MP Margaret Curran and Peter Duncan, former Scottish Conservative MP. So that's all on the Sunday Show with me, Nick Sheridan, and Martin Geisler here on BBC Radio Scotland and BBC One Scotland from 10.
My goodness, Nick, you were not kidding when you said it was a packed programme today.
Is.
It certainly is. Lots to look forward to. Nick, thank you very, very much. Now, Bob Marley, One Love, is released in cinemas this Friday. In just a few minutes, we'll find out more about Rastafari, the spiritual movement that Marley followed. But first, we need to get ourselves in the mood with...
We're going to do something now featuring Very Beautiful.
Up, kid, I know shit is rough doing your bit. When the cops came, you should have slid to my crib. Fuck it, black, no time for looking back, it's done. Plus, congratulations, you know you got a son. I heard he looks like ya. Why don't your lady write ya? Told her she should visit, that's when she got hyper. Flipping, talking about he acts too rough. He didn't listen, he be ripping while I'm telling him stuff. I was like, yeah, shorty don't care. She a snake too. Fucking with them niggas from that fake crew that hate you. But yo, guess who got shot in the dome piece? Jerome's niece on her way home from Jones Beach is bugged. Plus little Rob is selling drugs on the dime. Hanging out with young thugs that all carry nines. And nighttime is more tripe than ever. What up with Cormega? Did you see him or y'all together? If so, then hold a foot down. Represent to the fullest. Say what's up to Herb, Ice and Bullet. I left for $100 in your commissary. You was my nigga when push came to shove.
One what?
One love.
One love. One love. One love. One love. One love. One love. One love.
Dearborn, you'll be out soon. Stay strong. Out in New York, the same shit is going on. The crackheads stalking, loud mouths is talking. Ho, check out the story yesterday when I was walking. That nigga you shot last year tried to appear like he hurt something. Word him up, I heard him frontin', and he be pumping on your block. Your man gave him your Glock, and now they run together. What up, son? Whatever. Since I'm on the streets, I'ma put it to a cease. But I heard you blew a nigga with an ox for the phone piece. Wildin' on the island, but now in Elmira, better chill, cause them niggas will put that ass on fire. Last time you wrote, you said they tried you in the showers. But maintain when you come home, the corner's hours on the reels. All these crap niggas know the deal. When we start the revolution, all they probably do is squeal. But chill, see you on the next VI. I gave you my Duke's loop for kicks plus sent your flicks. Your brother's buck wildin' in 4 Main. He wrote me, he might be this case till he come home, I'm playing low key. So stay civilized, time flies, no incarcerated, your mind dies. I hate it when your mom's cries. It kinda makes me wanna murder, for real. I even got a mask and gloves to bust love for one love.
One love. One love. One love.
Hear the children crying. One love.
One love. One what?
One love.
Hear the children
One love.
One love. One love.
Sometimes I sit back with a Buddha sack, minds in another world, thinking how can we exist through the facts written in school textbooks, Bibles, etc. Fuck a school lecture, the lies get me vexed up. So I be ghost for my projects. I take my pen and pad for the weekend, hitting nails while I'm sleeping. A 2-day stay. You may say I needed time alone to relax my dome. No phone left and not at home. You see the streets had me stressed something terrible. Fucking with the corners, have a nigga up in Bellevue at HDM. Hit with numbers from 8 to 10. A future in a maximum state pen. It's grim, so I comes back home. Nobody's out but shorty do I. Pulling 2 Phillies together in the bridge, we call them ooh-ops. He said, Nas, niggas call me busting off the roof. So I wear a bulletproof and pack a black tray deuce. He inhaled so deep, shut his eyes like he was asleep. Started coughing when I peeked to watch me speak. I sat back like the Mac, my army suit was black. We was chilling on these bitches where he pumped his loose cracks. I took the L when he passed it. This little bastard keeps me blasted and starts talking mad shit. I had to school him, told him don't let niggas fool him. Cause when the pistol blows or when it's murder be the cool one. Tough luck when niggas are struck, families fucked up. Could've caught your man but didn't look when you bucked up. Mistakes happen, so take heed, never bust up at the crowd. Catch him solo, make the right man bleed. Shorty's laugh was cold-blooded as he spoke so foul. Only 12 trying to tell me that he liked my style. Then I rose, wiping a blunt's ash from my clothes and froze. Only to blow the earth smoke through my nose and told my little man I'm a ghost I pose. Got some jewels in the skull and he could sell if he chose. Words of wisdom from Nas, try to rise up above. Keep an eye out for Jake, shorty, rock one love.
One love. One love.
Hear the children crying. One love.
One what?
One love.
Hear the children crying.
One love.
One what? One love. Love.
One love. Love.
Love and happiness.
One love.
Love.
One love.
Remember, if you miss any of the show, you can catch up on BBC Sounds. Just search for Sunday Morning. My conversation with Louis Theroux from last Sunday is still available, so do check it out if you have missed it. Coming up between 9 and 10, I'll be joined by a trusted panel of guests, and amongst other things, we'll be discussing our increasing openness to share personal matters. That's in light of King Charles' cancer diagnosis being made public. And as Lent begins next week, we'll explore the value of abstinence. So do stay tuned for that. Now, the title of the new Marley biopic hit cinemas this week, which was the song, of course, we just played, One Love. As well as being known for his music, Bob Marley was one of the best-known followers of the spiritual movement Rastafari, developed in Jamaica in the 1930s. The movement took hold after the crowning of Ethiopian Emperor Haile Selassie. But how far is Rastafari practiced today, and what are the main tenets of its belief? Well, joining me to shed some light on the movement is Glasgow councillor and practising Rastafarian Graham Campbell. Good morning to you, Graham. It's great to have you with us on the programme.
Good morning, Zara. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. Now, first things first, Rastafari, it's considered a spiritual movement as opposed to a religious one, isn't it? What's the difference?
Yes, basically we reject the term ism, so you don't call it Rastafarianism. It is Rastafari. It's a fief system, of course it is. So it has many things in common with people who believe in a religion, but it's an Afrocentric spiritual philosophy of collective unity, love for humanity, and love for one another. That's at its simplest, but its core is Afrocentric values. It's a rejection of the Western-centric values of the empire, imperialism, and white supremacy, and everything that comes with that.
Mm-hmm. So thank you. But so it's rejecting that, and it's embracing something else. You mentioned sort of unity there.
Yeah, I suppose we are. Whenever somebody tries to get me to explain what Rastafarians are and what they believe, I would say we're spiritual, Afrocentric, anarchist communalists. We believe in political action as a citizen to make the world a better place, to do your bit for humanity, but we don't believe in the political structures. So it's kind of awkward being a political elected person and being Rasta, but you have to do good works. That's the bottom line of it. You have to do good works.
And how have you made peace with that?
Well, I see it as that I want to minimize the harm that capitalism does to all peoples, but particularly to African people. And I mean by African, the Pan-African diaspora. And of course, Rastafari is a faith that started in the diaspora, very spiritually inspired by the life of His Imperial Majesty, as a prophecy. We Africans were the first people to believe in Christianity. We were the first to believe in one God. We were the first to set up societies and civilizations and states. And Ethiopia as a country is important to us because it was the only country in Africa that was not colonized by the Western powers, which had a continuous civilization, believing in one love and humanity. That's important.
The history of it is fascinating, and I wonder if we can delve a bit more into this. So Haile Selassie was obviously the Ethiopian emperor and very much entwined with this movement. So tell us a bit more about Haile Selassie and how this is now viewed by followers.
Well, the name Ras Tafari, Ras is prince, and Tafari was His Majesty's personal name. When he ascended the throne of Ethiopia in 1928, he was crowned King of King, or Negus, in 1930. And there's a prophecy which Marcus Garvey revealed a few years before, that a black king, an African king, would come down to earth and fulfill the prophecy that humanity would be liberated and at one with God and nature. And many people in Jamaica saw that prophecy was coming true when they saw the coronation of His Imperial Majesty, Haile Selassie. And he claims descent, and rightly so, from the Queen of Sheba and from King Solomon 3,000 years back. So this is a continuous line of descent almost from Adam and Eve to the present day. So when he was appearing, this is a time when, of course, the world is run by Western European imperial powers. Ethiopia is the only other properly independent African country with its own civilization and culture. And Rastafaris saw the mystic revelation in that and saw that was a fulfillment of a divine prophecy, that in the person of His Imperial Majesty, you have God, man, and spirit all in the one place. He is the divine Trinity. So that's what Rastas believe. He is divine and therefore to be followed.
Yes. And Graham, I'm wondering, you live in Scotland. How easy is it to practice this within this country? It doesn't seem like something that's particularly widespread here, or that's well followed in Scotland, but we could be wrong.
Well, obviously the biggest carrier of the faith is the music, and people know Rastafari because of the music. And obviously there are many people out there who are dreads or who are inspired by the music, the spiritual music. Yeah. I mean, the Rivers of Babylon, all the songs of Mali. These are cultural references, which are references to Rastafari. It's something that is widely unseen in the culture, but not necessarily understood. I wouldn't say that it's understood, because I think there's a myth around it. And the first one, obviously, is that people think that ganja is the primary thing about Rastafarianism. I don't smoke. I've always been a non-smoker. And the belief system was always about using sacraments, like in other religions. The big mistaken for thinking about Rastafari is that we're all about ganja. We're not. Ganja is just a herb. It's a medicinal herb which we, as communities in Jamaica, used as part of our ways of surviving. We created autonomous communities which were self-sufficient, and these self-sufficient included selling ganja to get by, because we were trying to get by independently of the system. Now, I don't think it's necessary to be a consumer of ganja, especially not the stuff they grow here. So,
but you're mentioning there the sort of stereotype, I guess, of what a Rastafari is, and I'm particularly interested in the music, because someone who is very much synonymous, of course, with Rastafari is Bob Marley, and before his death from cancer in 1981, he kind of brought this spirituality into the lexicon, really. What extent then is reggae and dancehall music, or indeed Bob Marley's music? How much does that play a role in Rastafari?
Well, clearly, for the groundings and the reasonings that a Rastafarian community does with the drum, with the sound, with the music, with instruments, and with their voices, it's harking back to Africa. We're all about returning to Africa, both physically, mentally, and spiritually. So by creating that music, that African sound, that's the sound you hear in the background. You hear it in even a song like "Oh Carolina." That song is based on a Nyabingi Fundi rhythm, a drum rhythm from Africa, which we're the carriers of. And Rastas were the first to say that Caribbean people are actually Africans who happen to be in the Caribbean, that all people descended from Africans. Now, we were called mad when we said that, but actually genetic science proved that we were right. When they said that Africa is the source of all human life. Rastafarians were literally imprisoned and sent to mental institutions in the 30s, 40s and 50s by the Jamaican government in those days, because that was crazy that black people could, beget white people, and civilization should stem from black people. But actually, science proves us right. So it's something that Rastafari knows spiritually, that is proven in real life. And that's what made it a dangerous religion. Eventually, we won our fight and our space within Jamaican society, and through the medium of our culture, through our music. And the music was a crucial weapon for fighting racism, fighting oppression across the world, and of course in our own lands. So it's I understand why people relate to the music so much, but what makes the music powerful is its Africanness, is its rootsicalness.
Well, it's certainly something that has become very distinctive, and as I said, synonymous with Rastafari is the music. But I wonder if we could dive a bit deeper into the main tenets of of belief for Rastafari. What do you have to adhere to, or believe, or consider as a Rastafari?
Well, we have a phrase called liberty, and liberty basically means living a clean and spiritually guided life, and that usually means a vegetarian or vegan, or if you're a fisher person, you have many villages who are by the ocean, so Rastas can be fishermen as well. So it's living a clean life which is close to nature, which is away from Western-style civilization, which is independent as much as you can be from, we're guided by some of the old biblical principles about being against usury, against exploitation, against oppression, against slavery, all those things that the Bible tells us is wrong, that are practiced within society that we've lived in. So it's a belief in that elemental justice. It's a belief in spiritual unity, that the spirit that you feel is a godly spirit that we have and we share with nature, and that obviously every human being is equal. So we don't have a structure which says, we don't have a pope. We don't even have a written text as such. We use the Bible and we use other spiritual sources, but there isn't a pope of Rastafari to tell you this is the way you must be. Every Rastafari, every brethren and sister
is sovereign. Sovereign
to spiritually guide their way, and they have every right to reason and make common cause. But it's hard to be on your own. I mean, there is a community in England. There isn't a proper community up here, I would say, but there are many individuals and they're doing good works out there.
And Graham, just very quickly, you're off to the premiere of One Love in London on Wednesday. Do you have high hopes for the film?
I'm very interested to see it. I understand that the Tough Gong organisation is supportive of the movie, and and it's interesting that an English African person is playing Bob, and had to go for a lot of dialogue coaching to get him to the point of being able to play Bob. I'd be really interested to see how he carries it off and how close to the truth it is. Obviously, it's going to come and cover a lot of the main things that people already know about Bob, but I hope it reveals many of the things people don't know about.
Well, you'll have to let us know how you got on, Graham. Thank you so much for joining me this morning. It's been wonderful to talk to you. And if you're now hankering for a bit of Bob, you can watch One Love, the biopic of the reggae legend and Rastafari, Bob Marley, in cinemas from Friday. Still to come, cancer charities have expressed thanks to King Charles for being open about his cancer diagnosis, saying it raises awareness. So how helpful is it in sharing personal matters? And with Lent approaching, we're looking at some of the spiritual benefits of fasting and abstinence. The news is up next, and taking us there is the winner.
Metaphorically medicinal, tuna fishy food, decibel peaks be my ritual. One condition, though we're laying on like a municipal. Lyrics and visual, with puffin' Buddha, get your crew, and I'ma do the opposite of peace. And go to war, so go prepare your wars for the floor show. Every more so, I'm your corporal, rather resourceful. Ripping rappers from they dome piece to their torso. No remorse for imitators, my groovy innovators, paying homage as well as returning favors. Learning flavors from the path pavers. Now Ozo Motley be making new hits from past data. Take it. It's a Super Bowl Sunday. Hey. It's a Super Bowl Sunday. Hey. Yeah, I'm Charlie Tuna Fish, ain't no fucking twist in my posture. Taking shots cause a brother gotcha. Get my proper shrimp and lobster on my dock like a mobster. Giving shouts and states to sustain my stature. Altered chemically, ain't no gimmick behind the way that I'm designing my rhyme line for line you'll find in your neighborhood. There's a flavor blood, whether you're a ghetto star or if your name is Mud. I speak the truth rather courageously, and I act rather contagiously when the stage is free. The rage in me's contained, now they got me. Charlie Tuna Fish and Ozo Motley. Hey. It's a Super Bowl Sunday. Hey. It's a Super Bowl Sunday. Hey. It's a Super Bowl Sunday. Hey.
Rua. I'm with you until 10 o'clock. Now, Lent is fast approaching, a time when some Christians observe days of fasting and others forego life's little luxuries. We'll be exploring the spiritual benefits of fasting and abstinence. Now, the Archbishop of Canterbury has recently commented on our online behaviour, believing we are becoming less forgiving. Can religion give us some guidance in making room for more forgiveness? And the King's cancer diagnosis was made public last week. Is this something you appreciated or found helpful? We'll be discussing if sharing more personal information about ourselves can help unburden us and allow connection with others. And joining me to explore these topics are Rosa Murray, Sheikh Hassan Rabbani and Fiona Stewart. Good morning and welcome to you all.
Good morning, Sarah.
Good morning, Sarah. Lovely to have you with us. Now, I'm going to look forward to getting stuck into these stories with you very, very soon, but let's kick off with some music first. A track that was in the charts this week 50 years ago, would you believe? But it is still just as fabulous. Here's Stevie Wonder and Living for the City.
A boy's born in hot time, Mississippi, surrounded by four walls that ain't so pretty. His parents give him love and affection to keep him strong, moving in the right direction, living just enough for the city. His father works some days for 14 hours, and you can bet he barely makes $1. His mother goes to scrub the floors for many, and you best believe she hardly gets a penny, living just enough for the city. Patience long, but soon it won't have any. To find a job is like a haystack needle, 'cause where he lives, they don't use colored people, living just enough for the city.
Just a lovely song there. That's Stevie Wonder and Living for the City. Absolutely love that. Now, last week, King Charles' cancer diagnosis was made public, which seems to point to a shift in a more open monarchy. An openness that is echoed in society, with more people discussing matters which would previously have been kept private. Is all this sharing a positive move? Some would say so. In recent days, we've heard individuals and cancer charities express that the King has been open, as they say it helps express thanks that the King has been open, because they say it helps others who are going through similar issues, as well as raising awareness. Well, we want to get into that cultural shift right now with my panel, Rosa Murray, who works in teacher education in the University of Edinburgh and is a practising Catholic, Fiona Stewart, a writer who runs a Christian arts charity, and Sheikh Hassan Rabbani, a Muslim chaplain at Heriot-Watt University and a relationship counsellor. Rosa, is it a good thing then that the King has shared his diagnosis, that he's made it public?
I think it is, and I think it's a remarkable shift, because, you know, the public would never have known anything about what was happening with the royals, and indeed I think in the past, perhaps even they weren't told if it was cancer themselves way back in the past. So I think it is a good thing. I think he himself this morning has been talking about how comforted he feels by the good wishes of others and the messages of support, and also importantly the charities that are saying this is really helping. So that's a real bonus, I think. The big thing for me is I think it takes the fear out of what we used to call growing up the C word. People didn't talk about cancer. And as a result, it became this massive monster. And the focus was much more negative about it rather than the treatments that, of course, are available. And, you know, just to kind of finish off, I was speaking with a very close friend of mine who's going through cancer. And I was asking her about this, and she said to me, it really helps for me to talk to people. It works for me. It might not work for everyone, but it works for me to talk about it, and it helps me mentally to deal with it, to be able to talk to others and receive their support and their love and their prayers, which we may come on to as well.
Well, you do find that some people internalise, some people like to share. But Hassan, a generation ago, you know, we tended to keep our mental and physical health to ourselves. And maybe that was due to embarrassment or maybe fear, showing weakness. Have we let some of that go? And is there, I guess, a freedom that comes with that?
I mean, particularly from my kind of BME background, it was very frowned upon to talk about actually anything like that. My own father's generation shared very little, and the idea was to suffer in silence and suffer alone. But I think that's very much changed. I think this idea of sharing, number one, it kind of reduces stigma. Number two, it kind of fosters support. So in the Muslim community generally, there's a reluctance of sharing. But my own work through counselling, I have actually realised people want to open up, but they want those kind of safe spaces where they feel they're not going to be judged.
And I guess what are the benefits then to sharing this kind of information, Fiona?
I mean, it is interesting. I mean, I agree completely with what Rosa and Hassan have already said there. It's sort of up to the individual, isn't it? And I think that's where it gets complex with the royal family, because they do occupy this sort of celebrity status.
Yes.
So you do wonder, you know, what are the benefits? It feels to me like quite an altruistic gesture to say I want to make this public because I want, you know, there to be highlight placed on organisations and so on. And it made me think about Deborah James, you know, Bowel Baby. And she did a remarkable thing, you know, while she was going through treatment and prior to her death in opening up the conversation around bowel cancer. So there's something, yes, about highlighting, but I think we do need to be mindful of different people's responses. So different age groups of people, I think different generations might have a different way of approaching illness, just different personality types. So some people do want to share and find that really supportive and helpful. For other people, illness and health is still a very private thing. So I suppose I would just caution some sensitivity around how we talk about it. But yeah, I think it's good to bring things into the open, isn't it?
They say a problem shared is a problem halved, don't they? But are we becoming a nation of oversharers? And is there such a thing as being too open, Rosa?
I think the word that Hassan used was very important about safe spaces. I think we can see a lot of oversharing, but through it, especially with social media, there's a lot of vulnerable people. And perhaps they have no one to talk to. And so they share on social media platforms. Yes. And sometimes there is enormous compassion expressed towards them, but sometimes there isn't. And it can perhaps be damaging. So I think safe spaces, trust, understanding that what you're sharing is quite sacred, and to respect that, and so you must trust people. But oversharing social media, I think that can be difficult and it can damage people.
Hassan, you were saying that, you know, in the Muslim community, your experience has shown that, you know, in the past people have maybe withheld that, and traditionally even, you know, the older generation, perhaps they wouldn't share as much. Is there, you know, pressure that comes with this expectation in society to be open?
I definitely think so. I think there's this idea that maybe sometimes we have to be too open with some of our things. Particularly the Muslim community, of course, there are certain sensitivities around certain topics and the way they're actually addressed. But in particular, the King's cancer, I think him sharing that, you know, I went to another imam just yesterday in Glasgow, and he was kind of lamenting about the King's cancer and, you know, that we were praying in the mosque for him. And I just found that kind of incredible that the King being the head of the church, it'll be interesting to see how he uses the strength of his own faith actually as he progresses through his journey. And I think that would be remarkable for people like us who are of faith, that how can we use faith in this open space when we're dealing with kind of these tragic incidents.
Fiona, you know, when it comes to sharing stories or sharing information about yourself, we know that this is how we connect as human beings, isn't it? You have to reveal, and there's an equal balance then of listening and sharing. But just how important is it not to, you know, listen? Because there's some people that do withhold a lot of information. They don't often give much away. You'll notice it in your friendship groups and perhaps in your family that there's some people that are just known to be great listeners. But how important is it to, in terms of building a human connection, to share and be vulnerable?
Oh, I think it's enormously important with all of what you've just said, Zara, being true, being sensitive to one another's preferences, I suppose, with that. And I think listening, it's interesting because Hassan mentioned prayer there. I think listening, for me, increasingly as I get older, actually, I realise that prayer is about listening. It's about listening to what God is prompting within me. It's about listening to what people are saying and what they're not saying, in order that I can pray for them in their circumstances. And so, you know, that it's about listening to body language. It's about listening to you know, people's emotion as they speak, what they hold back. You know, that you know, that sense when you know somebody's not telling you something. I think for me, it really it gives me an insight, I suppose, that pushes me and presses me towards praying and interceding. And I suppose there's a shared humanity to that.
Rosa?
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, actually, because one of the great strengths, I think, in communities, in faith communities, is, well, for me, I know when I go to Mass, the names of those who are sick are on a list. And I find that really powerful. Maybe increasingly I find it more powerful as I get to know many of them that are on the list. But I think there's something really, really important about knowing when you're ill that your name is being read, your name is being heard, and those in the community will leave that celebration that day and take you with them and hold you in their hearts and pray. I think that's incredibly powerful. If it was me, I would really welcome that. I think I would need it, and I would find great succour and support from knowing that was happening.
And you've both mentioned, or we've heard prayer mentioned there, and just the importance of that. And obviously King Charles has spoken this week to give his thanks for all the prayers he has received from people. It'd be good to dive into faith a little bit more in this context, and just how in other ways faith can really help people coping with illnesses and understanding our place in the universe, giving us context around our fragility. Fiona?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, and certainly King Charles has been, I think, more open as time has gone on, hasn't he, really, about his own personal faith aspect. But I think, as Hassan mentioned, you know, he is head of the church. There's a title to that. that brings, I suppose, a leadership within church, within the established church anyway. I was thinking about hope actually. I was thinking about what we're doing when we're praying. So we're upholding the person. We're doing that thing where it's the shared sense of community together. We would want to pray for healing for people, but we would also recognise that healing is not something that we always see in the here and now. And so I think as we pray, we're praying that people will persevere, will endure, will find comfort in suffering. But for me, as a Christian, there is hope beyond. My faith is based on the hope of the resurrection, beyond death. So that whatever we go through, we long to see people healed in the here and now. And I can tell stories of people who have been healed from illness, but it doesn't always happen. So there's sensitivity around that, but also hope.
Sheikh Hassan Rabbani, let's bring you in here. Your thoughts?
For me as a Muslim, we have this entire understanding of going through illnesses in which we believe God is kind of purifying us. There's a bulk of tradition about going and visiting the sick, spending time with them. In fact, there's a beautiful saying of Prophet Muhammad in which he says, God is going to ask us on the Day of Judgment that I was ill, O son of Adam, why did you come to meet me? God, how can we meet you? Well, I was with so-and-so when he was ill. So there's a great kind of importance placed on that. But one of the points that was made, similarly on Friday prayers, I get a lot of these kind of little papers, names of people who are very ill, and particularly on Friday, if we can actually pray for them. And I think that's very important.
And it's a similar practice that happens at the mosque, yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rosa Murray, Fiona Stewart and Sheikh Hassan Rabbani. I'm sure the King will be taking some comfort from his own faith, just as his mother, Queen Elizabeth, did before him. In a moment, we'll turn our attention to something the Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, said in recent days about cancel culture and forgiveness. But first, a beautiful track from the
The nerve of a mountain lion, the purr of a tame house cat, the smile of a Miss Congenial, the worth of a poisoned rat, I mean cat, or this and that. The nerve of you. One day I will learn, never trust your smile, but because I love you oh so much, I know it's gonna take a good while. The nerve of you.
Now, you post something stupid when you're 19 and you pay for it when you're 35 and you pay for it forever. These are the words of the Archbishop of Canterbury, the Most Reverend Justin Welby, in a recent address at the Church of England's National Education Conference. He spoke about the impact of trolling, calling the absence of forgiveness appalling. So have we become too quick to judge and to hold grudges, making us a less forgiving society? Well, still with me are Rosa Murray, who works in teacher education at the University of Edinburgh and is a practicing Catholic, Fiona Stewart, a writer who runs a Christian arts charity, and Sheikh Hassan Rabbani, a Muslim chaplain at Heriot-Watt University and a relationship counsellor. Fiona, have we somehow lost perspective when it comes to our reactions to online comments?
I think we have. Well, I mean, I think it's getting worse, but I think it's always been there.
Mm-hmm.
So I was thinking about, knowing we were going to be talking about this, a book I enjoyed a number of years ago was So You've Been Publicly Shamed by John Ronson. Yeah, brilliant book. And I went to hear him speak about it actually back in 2012 or something like that. And he talked about Twitter, and he, his whole thing is he follows stories of people who've been cancelled, and one tweet has led to them losing their jobs, massive attacks online and so on. And he was talking about how Twitter, when it first began, was this, equal access platform and everybody could speak to everybody, and it was this beautiful kind of utopian dream, but it got poisoned really, really quickly. And he was saying that back in 2012, I think. And what really struck me was he talked about the fact he didn't know what the answer was. And I was in the concert hall in Glasgow, listening to him, and I wanted to sort of shout out, I think forgiveness is the answer. I think mercy's got to be the answer. But we just seem increasingly to be losing that.
Yeah, it was an interesting book actually, and it reminded me often of the kind of old-fashioned public shamings that that you would have in the streets, and that sort of mob mentality. Is it just a fact that has moved online now, Fiona?
I think it has, although I was actually thinking this week, what happens online then moves offline too. So it was a stupid story, but there was an incident in my street this week with two cars having a face-off. I'll not say any more because I think it was probably subject to investigation, because it got heated and it got serious. And I was just sort of reflecting on the number of little incidents that I see happening where people are angry with each other.
And that escalation.
And I wonder how much the social media aspect of that plays into it. So, we've almost shaped ourselves with our online presence into Fiona, who we then become.
I do wonder if someone was filming it and you might see that later online at some point.
Well, that's right.
Yeah. Hassan, in your work with students, you'll see that they're still figuring out where they stand on a lot of things. They're learning and growing. Do we need to be able to make mistakes? The internet has become a particularly dangerous place to do that, has it not?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I was watching Mark Zuckerberg and the big tech guys who were in front of the Senate, and they were kind of getting grilled on the dangers of social media. I really feel for young people. There's a period of kind of you go through where you're a bit silly and you say silly things, and usually that's in one ear and out of another. And the problem with social media is that it always stays there. And the second issue that I have, that it's devoid of any form of kind of facial expression. When we speak, the expressions say a lot.
There's nuances in context.
I mean, just recently in WhatsApp now, I've decided instead of messaging, just to send audio messages to people. There's something about listening to someone and taking a lot from that. So yeah, young people have a very difficult, and in universities now, I mean, you could really be kicked out of the uni over one silly tweet that you probably posted in the morning when you were drunk or something like that, only to wake up that you're out of the course.
It's sort of hard to grasp that these things that we write and that we do online are almost immortalised, really, aren't they? And I'm sure that most of us will be grateful that we didn't grow up in a time of social media. Rosa, what does that level of scrutiny do to you?
Oh, I would hate that level of scrutiny. I think, have you ever been in conversations with people who always manage to remember everything you did from when you were about 7? And you think, really, this isn't helpful. Yeah, it's like, this is not helpful. This is not life-giving. Yeah. And for whose good is this conversation? And I think, thank God, I was never subject to the scrutiny of what I said when I was 15, 19 now, because I really would not relish that. And the idea of cancelling people just seems to me to be absolutely inhuman and wrong. I think for our students, we're always saying to them, be cautious, because whatever you put online is really a postcard to the world. And you have to think now about that in terms of your professionalism and where you're going to be in public life. I think it's sad. I think it's wrong, but that's the way it is.
Does this sort of take away your voice at times? Are people kind of scared to share? We were talking about sharing earlier. You know, do people think twice about sharing things about themselves then, Rosa?
I would certainly be more cautious at times, particularly with use of language. I think I'm much more aware of that now, because with social media, it can be picked up and perhaps what you meant isn't exactly what's understood. And so you can find yourself in a position that's very difficult. So, yes, I think I'm more cautious. I think I need to be.
I mean, Hassan, Justin Welby said, and I'll quote him again, the absence of forgiveness in our world and our country is absolutely appalling. This is what he said. Are we very bad at forgiving? Is it just, the platform is so public, it's plain for everyone to see the behaviour? Is that the only reason, or is there something else?
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely agree with him. I mean, I was saying to Fiona earlier, I mean, I hope God is not like us, one sin and he totally cancels us. But yeah, definitely. I think there's something about the space on social media, maybe the anonymity, the kind of distance, the digitalness actually of it, that sometimes, beautiful qualities like forgiveness, mercy, giving the benefit of doubt. I think all of those come kind of clamoring down, and you're very kind of ruthless actually on social media. Yeah.
Fiona, how hard is it to find the capacity to forgive?
I think it's really hard. I think it's our big problem, isn't it? Is it? Jesus says that he was asked a question about how many times you should forgive, and he said, the person asked him, said it 7 times, and he said no, 77 times 7 times. And I've thought about that a lot over the years. That I think that's not just about forgiving 70 times 70 sins or whatever, but I think it's about maybe having to always go back and keep forgiving the person. So for the big things and the small things, sometimes I think with the big things where you have it's a big momentous moment to choose to forgive, that's an enormous thing. But sometimes the hard bit is the little things, the irritations or the kind of otheringness when you feel that somehow you've been affronted by somebody, and just choosing to let that go, but also choosing every day to let that go. So I can't just say, well, I forgive this person today, but tomorrow I'll feel as resentful again.
Rosa's nodding.
Yeah, I think you're right, Fiona. I think forgiveness and love are almost the same coin. And sometimes if things are difficult, you have to make decisions to love, and the process takes you through.
Yes.
Forgiveness for me is the same. Forgiveness is a decision. It may not be the feeling you have, but it's a decision. And the forgiveness is a process. I don't think it's, I've forgiven and that's it, especially with hard things. What strikes me about forgiveness, or where I find it inspirational, is you often find forgiveness amongst the poorest of people, are those who've suffered the most. We see it time and time again, and we see it even today in the Middle East conflict. Incredible stories of forgiveness and compassion. They inspire me enormously. And I think, for people in those situations to be able to find in their hearts forgiveness, we've seen it in stories in Northern Ireland, we've seen it in many places, and I'm totally inspired by that, and I think it's very interesting. I think it was Paulo Freire that spoke about that. You'll always find inspiration in the margins.
Yeah, it's a lovely, lovely quote there. Hassan, it is hard to let go, isn't it, sometimes, of whether they're kind of larger transgressions or they're smaller things that you hold on to. What does the Quran say about forgiveness?
Yeah, I mean, the Quran is... every chapter in the Quran, God starts with his own... Out of the 99 names, the 2 names is the often repeated are the most merciful and the most kind. So there's an intentional rigor in the Quran, the idea of kind of forgiveness. And we have many, within the Quranic corpus, this idea that if you are willing to forgive, then God is actually willing to forgive you. So I think it's how do you build the capacity of forgiveness actually within us? And I think generally faith, the religions do that quite well. I mean, either that reading the Quran or the Bible, you come back slightly more inspired that, you know, how am I going to build this kind of capacity in me? But virtual forgiveness, which I would say what happens online, I think that is quite difficult actually to do and to process.
Fiona, judgment and forgiveness are interlinked, really, aren't they?
Yeah.
What do we know about in terms of judgment and our approach online? Are we dehumanizing people? Is there a missing link there?
I think we are, Zara. I was thinking that earlier in the discussion, actually, that it plays into all our selfishness, doesn't it? That desire to feel better about ourselves by judging somebody else and critiquing somebody else. So I think it appeals to our quite base instincts. Our sinful nature would be, you know, what we would talk about in terms of Christian faith. So yeah, we almost need to kind of develop a theology of digital practice, don't we? Or some sort of, I don't want to say guidelines because it's not about rules, but it's an etiquette, isn't it? And modelling something. So I was struck there when Rosa was talking about these stories. You know, maybe we need to, as people of faith, be sharing good stories, whether they're, you know, from the Bible, the Quran, or whether they're personal stories that we know, or I was thinking about the story of Corrie ten Boom, who was a Dutch lady put into Ravensbrück concentration camp for harbouring Jews in the Second World War. And her sister died in the camp, and she survived and later confronted the guard who was particularly cruel to her sister, Betsy. And she describes in her book a moment of absolutely not wanting to forgive this man for the evil he's done, but being filled with the Holy Spirit and God giving her the ability, you know, that choice to do it. And beautiful stories like that are hugely impactful,
absolutely.
aren't
And I think sharing these stories and understanding them helps us to be aware of the capacity for forgiveness. Lots to talk about there. Thank you so much for your views on that subject, one that of course deeply affects us as a society. That's Fiona Stewart, Hassan Rabbani and Rosa Murray. In a few minutes we're diving into the importance of abstinence and restraint as Lent approaches. Right now, though, everything but the
Now I'm hoping
week, which means the beginning of Lent. A season of reflection and preparation before the celebrations of Easter. And it's often a time when people choose to go without possessions or luxuries. Many religions observe periods of fasting or the giving up of things. In fact, the beginning of Ramadan is less than 1 month away. But what is the value of abstinence or fasting to our spiritual lives? Does it allow us to connect at a deeper level, or does it act as a purging or cleansing of self? Well, my trusty panel are here to explore these questions. Rosa Murray, who's a practicing Catholic, Fiona Stewart, who runs a Christian arts charity, and Sheikh Hassan Rabbani, a Muslim chaplain. Rosa, earlier in the programme we were speaking to Church of Scotland minister and yoga teacher Pauline Steenbergen about her book, which was combining Lent with the practice of yoga and taking it up for 40 days. But obviously Lent symbolises Christ's 40 days and nights alone in the wilderness. Is it an important time to you, and how are you planning to spend it? Are you giving something up, or are you adopting something this year?
Yeah, well, I mean, I grew up in the generation where you gave something up and it was either sweets or it was, sugar in your tea. And as children doing that, actually, I don't think I really understood what that was about. But it was something that happened, so it's something you can reflect on later. But it did point out the point of self-sacrifice and about perhaps a bit of control and discipline. Lent's always a really interesting time, isn't it? And I don't want to get to Easter Sunday and say, oh, no, not again. I should have done more. But I was reading some stuff over the weekend, and I really quite like this way of looking at Lent. Not so much what are you doing for Lent, but what's Lent doing for me? What's it going to give me the space to do? And I thought that actually opens this up much wider to help me to focus, to think, well, what's really important to me? And if I was to focus on the gospel, and the phrase I used earlier, come follow me, where would following Jesus take me? It takes me back to the margins. And I wonder if this time through Lent, I want to focus and think more in terms of abstinence and fasting, because I think they all interconnect, into how other people live in the world, to be more focused on that. And what can I do to help, to identify, to be in solidarity? They may be small ways, but that's where that takes me. So it's more the space of what Lent can do for me this time.
And what about you, Fiona? Is it a time for you to give something up? Obviously, it's a deep reflection for many Christians, the time of Lent. What role does it play for you?
Yeah, well, I was thinking, I've kind of shifted my perspective on this. I think when I was younger, I was sort of the, well, I don't need to do Lent because every day of the year I would want to sacrifice. I've increasingly, as I've got older, I keep saying this as I've got older, learned to value these times that are specific and focused. So I've done a variety of things over the years. I've given things up. I've taken up something. So I've maybe committed to pray for a specific area of the world, or I've donated to a particular charity. I'm quite interested in human trafficking and, well, the abolition of it, obviously.
Thank you for clarifying.
Thank you for clarifying. Yes. So I would, perhaps do something that highlights that. I was thinking about the word fast, actually, and I was thinking about the contrast when we talk about fasting. We actually live in a culture that is very fast. It's fast fashion, fast food, fast satisfaction, really, isn't it, for everything? And I think one of the benefits of the fasting of Lent is about stepping off that, and saying, actually, I'm going to step off that treadmill and focus more on God and my relationship with God. And so, I probably will give something up, but I'll choose to do that in order to spend more time praying or so on. Yeah.
I mean, fasting seems to go very slowly considering the name it has. And one person who would probably agree with that, of course, is Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, who admitted, to fasting for 36 hours every week, which, I think this week he was seen to break with a chocolate bar at some point, because it's difficult to do. But that giving up or denying yourself, even physiologically, fasting, it can have some benefits. Autophagy, they often talk about brain cleaning and the process of what that can do to your body. Hassan, I mentioned that Ramadan is obviously not far away. Do you consider the aspects, the physical aspects the benefits that you're getting, or is it completely spiritual?
Well, I hope they're kind of physical benefits, because Ramadan is, for many Muslims, it's deep and spiritual, but it is very daunting. The long days, the night prayers, waking up in the morning to drop the kids off to school. It really takes a few days to get kind of into that routine. But there's something beautiful actually about that when the routine is set. In a practical way, you don't have to think about food or going to the bathroom. That's all kind of reduced, so you concentrate on what you do.
Simplifies life.
And breaking fast together, be that in the mosque or with your parents, that coming together of family in the evening, you would never see that outside Ramadan. So although Ramadan has this rigor, but there's certain things around it that makes it much easier for us. So you're right, it's less than a month, and I'm already thinking to myself, I need to reduce my intake and kind of mentally get prepared for it. Yeah.
Well, I know that there's some fabulous cookbooks available now specifically around that time, so I'm sure you can plan as well for how you're going to break your fasts. But Hassan, is there a feeling of accomplishment that you get from when Ramadan is over and you have completed the fasts? What does that do for you in terms of your self-belief and confidence, or does it affect you in any way like that?
Of course, the end of Ramadan marks the Eid, and part of the celebration of Eid is that you fasted for 29 or 30 days, and now it's the day of eating. And on Eid, actually, you struggle because for 30 days you haven't ate anything, and now you're munching all those samosas and pakoras and all the unhealthy food that you've been told to stay away from. But there is definitely this sense of achievement. But not only that, I think Islam encouraged that start fasting outside the month of Ramadan. So Prophet Muhammad fasted every Mondays and Thursdays. So what people would do is take that practice up even after Ramadan. How do we kind of build ourselves on that and maintain that?
Rosa, what's happening spiritually to you during those 40 days of Lent when you give something up or when you dedicate yourself to abstinence?
I think is there something about bringing the soul and the body together? More of a focus, a self-discipline that I think can be very helpful for us. And also maybe just making more of the space for God, for our faith, rather than what I'm going to eat next or what I'm going to do. And I think it makes me more mindful, about food, more mindful about what I'm doing. And I think more mindful of other people who, through no choice of their own, don't have food.
Yeah.
So I think it does that to me. I think it makes me feel clearer, if that makes sense. Yeah.
And more grateful by the sounds of
much more appreciative.
Well, yeah.
I think that's true. Much more appreciative of food when I have it, and also think more about it.
Yeah. And what about you, Fiona?
Yeah, I very much agree with that. I think my danger is always that I can see the physical benefits, and I think, great, I'll do some fasting, and I'll lose some weight. But actually, I try very hard to be quite intentional in terms of my spirituality around it, because actually, if I just fast and it's just for a physical purpose, that's good, but it's not doing what I'm really wanting it to do in terms of spirituality, that is about lifting my view to other people and the gratitude aspect of that. But I think lifting my eyes to God and knowing that He doesn't love me more if I can, endure a fast, but knowing that it gives me a focus on Him, and maybe spend some time reminding myself of the undeserved love that He has for me. So yeah, that would be my kind of prayer going into Lent, that I wouldn't just see it as a physical practice or a sort of self-denial in order to try and win God's love, but actually it would enhance my relationship with Him, yes, and with the world, I guess, and other people.
Hassan, what's your thoughts then in terms of the spiritual connection that you get at this time? Because obviously we're talking about Ramadan for Muslims, and that time is paired with lots of praying as well, and there's a sort of I guess a series of prayers that you do, and you're at the mosque more often. Do they have to go hand in hand, that denying yourself? Does it sort of make it easier? Does it bring focus to an element in particular?
I definitely think it does. Gluttony or eating a lot. It was something that was denounced in most major faiths. And in Ramadan, we feel that when you have an empty stomach, although you're feeling those pangs of hunger, but there's a certain clarity that you actually have. And it's nice to see over Ramadan, the mosques are generally kind of full. And also, I mean, I think there was a Guardian article talking about Muslims are during Ramadan are donating something like £3,000 a minute or something. So there's this kind of intense rigor of how does this spirituality manifest? I mean, it does manifest through prayer, but also actually through charity, where you really begin to feel, those who are disadvantaged, and how life is actually for them.
Mm-hmm. Rosa, where's the longevity in the impact that these times have on you? Because what struck me speaking to you all about Lent and about Ramadan is that, Hassan saying he's preparing for Ramadan this year and you're wondering what you're going to do this year, as is Fiona. But does it have a long-term effect on you? And what are some of those long-term effects? Is there longevity in the results that you get spiritually?
Yeah, I think so. I just think one example, one year I focused quite a lot on the Jesuits' release articles and a journey over Lent. And actually, once I had done that one Lent, every day there's readings and reflections and thoughts, I've actually carried it on in other ways. So, I've stayed in touch with what they do. It's all online, and followed their readings and prayers most days.
Oh, lovely.
So, yeah, there is that side to it. I'm sure there's lots of other things too, but that's one that comes to my mind.
It's lovely to know that you have continued that. And, I know certainly having participated in the Ramadan, that at least for a month afterwards, I eat less, which is always nice. Thank you all, Rosa Murray, Hassan Rabbani and Fiona Stewart. You're listening to Sunday Morning with me, Zara Janjua.
Guiding you It's me, America's sweetheart, and I just love having a blast. The Mountain Dew Baja Blast. Kids party? Having a blast. Stuck in an elevator? Having a blast. Winning. Losing. Having a... Probe me already. Blast. I can have a blast anytime, anywhere.
And with anyone?
Mountain Dew Baja Blast. In stores everywhere.
I, too, am having a blast.
Now, it is, of course, Valentine's Day on Wednesday, coinciding with Ash Wednesday, strangely enough. So before they leave us, I just wanted to ask my panel, what is your favourite, or I guess perhaps the most meaningful act of love you have received? And I should say first that it does not need to be romantic. Fiona?
Right, okay, it took me ages to think about this, Sarah. It was a really hard question. I was thinking about my dad. So when my dad sends me a thank you letter after birthday or Christmas, as he's very good at doing, he will send a really long letter, 2 or 3 pages, and I actually get a bit emotional talking about it. He'll start off by, thank you for whatever the present is, and then he'll always say, but obviously the most important thing of all was spending time with you and with my brother. And we're just, we just really love you as a daughter. It's profoundly moving, and I've kept them. I've kept these letters.
But what a lovely practice, because it's, I guess, something that you would do perhaps after a wedding or, a big birthday. But there's sort of something that disconnects us from that when it comes to family.
Yes, and sometimes we don't have the conversation, face to face. But to have something written like that, handwritten, it's
lovely.
Beautiful.
And Hassan, anything that stands out to you?
Yeah, I mean, I travel a lot, and I've got 4 young kids, and each time I come back, they will show me a card with weird scribbles and pictures and say, Dad, this is a card for you for come back. So I've got this box with kind of weird and wonderful art, but it's just a reminder that, they do miss me when I go, and it's a form of expression of love for me that they have.
Oh, there's lots of messages between you all and handwritten notes. I wonder what that says about our society and about this time, that something handwritten is more meaningful. What about yourself, Rosa?
Well, I got 2. It was a hard question. I had a lot of soul searching on this one. And then I decided, every morning my husband brings me a cup of tea. I think that's a lovely act of love, and it certainly helps the morning get started well. The second one, a bit more serious, is every year on my son's anniversary, that's 24 years now, his friends meet together, his school friends still meet together, and they come and see us, and they now bring their families to remember him and to celebrate us as a family. And I find that an extraordinary act of love over all these years.
I mean, it's a real dedication to the time that you've had and that friendship. It really shows the respect and the bond there. I also did like the cup of tea because I'm a big fan. That's the way to win me over, which is, of course, what my producer, Amrain, did for me earlier this morning. Brought me in a lovely coffee. So thank you very much for that, Amrain. Yeah, I mean, obviously, we were saying that Valentine's Day, of course, does fall on Wednesday, which is Ash Wednesday. Many people might be thinking about giving up love. Who knows? Would that be a suggestion for you all? No?
Would never give up love? Would it be easier? Never give up on love.
I think that seems like a lovely sentiment, of course. The thing is, Valentine's Day, obviously one to celebrate. It'll coincide with that. So I guess whatever you're choosing to give up, or perhaps you might be choosing to adopt as well on Wednesday, I hope that you have a great time and that you are successful and that you feel fantastic after those 40 days, or that as the laws of the universe dictate, you stop looking for love and then you find it. So thank you very much to Rosa Murray, to Sheikh Hassan Rabbani and Fiona Stewart for all of your wonderful thoughts this morning. Now, of course, the Sunday show is up next, and that this week is from Martin Geisler and Nick Sheridan. There is plenty and plenty of sport to come on BBC Radio Scotland, and then an evening of music gets underway from 5 o'clock with Gary Innes. Of course, if you missed any of the programme, you can catch up on BBC Sounds. But I'll leave you with a final track. Here's Taylor Swift and Ed.
You and me, baby. We belong together. We were made for each other. You really can get